Good day to everyone. This is a lesson coming to you from Excel with Elle. And as you can see, based on my screen, we will be looking at the grammatical concept of parts of speech today. Now, you've all heard about parts of speech. You've been doing parts of speech since kindergarten, where you would have looked at nouns as naming words, verbs as doing words, and you would have been building on that particular knowledge all the way up to grade 6. So let's understand firstly what we mean by the concept of parts of speech, and then we'll move on to look at some examples. Now, the first thing that I say to students is that they have to understand that words have work. Or I say to them that words carry out certain functions. So when we talk about parts of speech, it is a grammatical concept that is based on the idea that words carry out functions or words do work. So whenever you hear about parts of speech, what you should think about immediately is function or work of words. So you have to come to the realization that in every sentence, every word carries out or performs a particular function. And we will be looking at the functions or the work of the 8 parts of speech that we have in English. Now, the first one that we're going to look at is the noun. Now, a noun is a word whose function or whose work is to name. So if you look at my screen, you would see that I have highlighted, I have in capital letters, the word names. So that word tells you what is the function or the work of a noun. So any word that you see in any sentence that does the work of naming, it could be naming a person, an animal, a place, a thing, an idea, a feeling, a quality, etc. Once that word does the work of naming, its function is to name, then we categorize that particular word as belonging to the class of nouns. Then we have some words and their function is to replace a noun or a noun phrase. So those words, they are used in place of or instead of a noun or a noun phrase, as I said. So any word that functions to do that, then that word is a pronoun. Then we have some words and their function is to modify or to describe a noun or a pronoun. When I use the word modify, take it to mean to add to. Okay, so words that add to, they modify or they describe a noun or a pronoun, we call those words adjectives. Additionally, there are some words and their function is to express an action or to express a state of being. So these words that function or these words that do the work of expressing an action or a state of being, we call those words verbs. So far, you're seeing that words carry out particular functions, and it is based on the particular function of a word that you place it into a particular part of speech category. So we have seen that some words, their work is to name. That's their function. So we call them nouns. Other words, their function is to replace a noun or a noun phrase. We call those words pronouns. Words that function to describe a noun or a pronoun, adjectives. And then we looked at words that function to express an action or a state of being. We call those words verbs. So let's move on. We have 8 parts of speech. So far, we have only looked at 4. So the next one we're looking at here is the adverb. So a word that modifies a verb. Remember I said a while ago, you can think of the word modify as meaning to add to. So I like to say to my students, whenever you hear the word adverb, take its meaning literally, in that it adds to the verb. It modifies the verb. To do what? To tell how an action is done, when an action is done, where an action is done. Now, an adverb doesn't only function to give more information about verbs. Adverbs, they also modify adjectives, and they function as well to modify other adverbs. Now, as we go along further and we have more lessons on parts of speech, these things will become clearer. For now, this is just an overview of the parts of speech. Now, there are some words and their function is to link or to show a connection or to show how 2 words in a sentence, how those 2 words are related. So words that function to link 2 words together, or words that function to show how 2 words are related, we call those words prepositions. We're moving along now to our conjunctions. Now, conjunctions, they function to join. So the function of a conjunction is that it joins. It can join single words, phrases, and also sentences. And then finally, number 8, we have the interjection. And an interjection, its function is to express strong, sudden feelings, such as surprise or fear. Okay? So just to recap what we have been looking at so far, we've established that there are 8 parts of speech. We said that parts of speech is that particular grammatical concept that is built on the whole notion or the idea that words have work, that words carry out particular functions. And we have looked at some of the functions of words: naming, replacing a noun. We've looked at describing. We've looked at telling how an action is done, where, when, modifying adverbs, modifying adjectives. We have looked at words that link, words that show connection. We've looked at joining as a function of words also. And we have also looked at the function of expressing strong or sudden feelings. So these are all different functions that words carry out, or different work that words do. Okay, good. Now, on this next slide, we are going to apply what I have just explained. So I will be modeling for you as we try to figure out the answers to these questions. So your instructions are: what is the part of speech of the underlined word in each sentence? Now, what I say to my students all the time as well is that when you have these types of items, the first thing that you have to ask yourself is, what is the function of the underlined word? What is the work of the underlined word? Once you're able, firstly, to establish the function, of the focus word or the underlined word in this case, you should be able to identify the particular part of speech. So let's look at the first one. It says, there is a bird under the table. So step number one, what is the function or the work of this word? Now the word under, it is used there to show a connection or a link between two words. It shows how two words in this sentence, how they're related, how they're linked, how they're connected. And these two words are two nouns, bird and table. Now, if you were paying attention to what I was saying a while ago, you would remember me saying that a preposition is a word that is used to link two words in a sentence. So therefore, the part of speech here is preposition. Now, very often, students say to me that a preposition, it shows position. And while it is, I agree that some prepositions do show position, for example, on the hair, I do not want you to go away with the idea that by definition, a preposition is a word that shows position. Because, for example, when you meet sentences like, I shared the sweets between John and me. Now, the focus word there is between, and between is a preposition because it links the noun and the pronoun John and me. Now, you will agree with me that that word between, it does not show position. However, it is a preposition, and what makes it a preposition is function, in that it links these two words together. So I do not want you to go away with the idea that by definition, a preposition is a word that shows position, because that is certainly not true for all prepositions. Let's move on to number 2. It reads, loneliness has been plaguing him for years. Again, the first thing that you must do is identify the function or the work of the underlined word. Now, you will agree with me that the word loneliness, its function is to name. In this case, it names a feeling. And we have said before that words whose function is to name animals, places, people, things, ideas, feelings, etc., those words are called nouns. So therefore, the part of speech of the word loneliness is noun because of its function to name a particular feeling. Number 3 reads, a kind teacher gives them money for textbooks. And our underlined word here, our focus word, is them. Now, the word them must be replacing something. So it might be replacing John and Kerry. So a teacher gives John and Kerry money for textbooks could have been the original sentence. And now, instead of using the noun phrase John and Kerry, we use the word them. And if you remember, we said that words that are used to replace a noun or a noun phrase, those words are called pronouns. So then them here, it is a pronoun because it does the work of replacing, like I just said to you a while ago, a noun phrase. John and Kerry, or any other noun phrase that you want to use there. Number 4, I will wait here until he comes. So we're going through the same process. In that, we're first identifying the function of the word or the work of the word. Now, in this sentence, if we take out the word until, we have 2 simple sentences there. So on one hand, we have I will wait here. That's one sentence, a simple sentence. And then we have another simple sentence. He comes. Subject, verb. Yes, we can have a sentence, of course, with only two words. Good. So what the word until does is that it joins these two simple sentences. So its function is to join. And we have discussed that words that function or do the work of joining, we call those words conjunctions. So therefore, the underlined word until is a conjunction. Okay? And then we move on to our final slide where we have our final 4 items. Instructions are the same. We're identifying the part of speech of the underlined word. Ouch! James exclaimed when the bee stung him. So we're looking at the word ouch. Now, you will agree with me, I'm sure, that the word ouch, it is used to express strong feelings. In this case, James, he has been stung by a bee, so we know that he is feeling pain. So when he says, ouch, that's an expression of pain. So that word, it functions to express strong, sudden feelings. And words that function to express these types of feelings, we call them interjections. So your answer here, interjection. Number 6 reads, my older brother drives fast. The underlined word fast. First thing, you ask yourself, what is the function of? What is the work of? Now, if we look at the word fast, it is telling us how my older brother drives. Now, drives is a verb. It expresses an action. So words that are used to add to the verb, words that are used to tell how an action is done, in this case, how the action of driving is done. Those words are called adverbs because literally they add to the verb, in this case, to say how the action is done. Number 7, we are excited about the recently opened water park. Our focus word here, water. First thing you must do, decide on the function of the word, then we move from there. Now, I know some persons might be tempted to say, oh, water is a thing. It's a thing that we drink. It names something, therefore it's a noun. It is not a noun in this case. Now, let's look closely at what it does. And this is why I say to students, you can't be too quick to assume that a word is a particular part of speech. Because what you need to understand is that one word, the same word, can be used as different parts of speech depending only on the function of the word, which is why to be able to correctly identify the part of speech, you have to first decide on function. So in this case, water is not a noun because its function is not to name something. Rather, the function of this word here is that it describes the word park. It tells what kind of park. So it is describing or modifying the noun park. And words that are used to describe, we call those words adjectives. So in this case, number 7, water is an example of an adjective and not a noun. And what makes it an adjective is strictly its function, in that it does the work or it functions to describe the noun park. And then number 8 says, the tired housekeeper lay on the couch and slept. So first decide on the function. So the function of the word lay is that it tells you what the subject of the sentence did. The subject here is the tired housekeeper, the one who did the action. So because it tells you what she did, then it is a verb, because verbs, one of the functions of a verb is that it is used to express an action, as is the case here. Okay, and just like that, we've come to the end of this lesson. So what you should take away from this lesson is, firstly, there are 8 parts of speech. Secondly, when we talk about parts of speech, we're talking about that grammatical concept that has to do with the function or the functions or the work of words in sentences. And then you should also take away with you that in order to correctly identify a particular part of speech, you have to first decide on what is the function of the word. Once you're able to correctly identify the function, then it is so much easier then to identify the particular part of speech. Okay, so this has been another lesson from Excel with Elle. We do hope that you found it to be quite helpful, and hopefully you will join us for our next lesson. Until then.